Hello everyone and welcome to Dhashly Digest. You're joining Nicolas, Thomas and myself, Victoria, and actually you've caught us in the middle of a conversation, so I think we're going to dive right in. A moment ago we were just talking about larger organisations and I was thinking something. So big ships seem to be in big shit at the moment when it comes to adaptation. Tom, Nicolas, I think both of you had some interesting thoughts on that, didn't you? Would you like to elaborate?
Sure, 100%. Let me jump right in. And my point is that we reached a level of not just slowness of adaptation that is becoming critical, but a level of rigidity of traditional mindset that think like business is just like business as usual. You don't really have to be adaptive because it's all about tech and infrastructure and all those kind of parts of a business that you used to only change once every 10 years or so, and that time has passed. And to make that point, we have been talking about the level of volatility that we see right now in this world, which is just out of this world, which is crazy high. And we've been talking a little bit about what that means in terms of the requirements for big business, which comes down to you need to be adaptive in order to survive. It's just a matter of time until we see these big businesses fail. We're actually already seeing them fail, because if you look at the signs or the rate with which big businesses cut jobs right now, that's your first indicator that their business is not working anymore.
And perhaps to add from my side, I think also that mainly in Europe and in Germany, we are very stuck into still our attitude that our knowledge is what drives us, and we have this knowledge already like for 30 years, but this knowledge is not worth anything more for the future. So that's why we have to keep and to look at adaptation, to find through adaptation a new currency, which then brings us business, adaptation, knowledge and everything. But as long as we don't make this change, we still stick to what we have, and this is not valid anymore.
Completely agree. It's funny. It always makes me think of the idea of, I think, the zombie economy and zombie business, and the way that organizations have been hiding their sort of ineffectiveness is just by trying. For a while it was, at first it was just culling numbers, and then they'd rehire again when there was a bit of a boom, and now there's been, okay, well in theory we've adopted AI, whatever that means, and now it's like, and we've already cut the employees now, so now what do we do? Because we don't have the employees to be able to cut anymore, and we've supposedly got this technology, so we're supposedly forward thinking, a bit like, what is it, that company, was it Allbirds or something, the shoe company that
they pivot towards AI.
Yeah, supposedly they basically sold off the shoe business. They were once worth something like 4 billion or something. Don't quote me on that number, but something rather large. And then people just realized that the shoes at that point had sort of decreased in their I guess the craftsmanship around them. And so what they've done now is, now that their share price is absolutely tanked, is they sold the shoe side of the business, and then they were like, oh yeah, but now we're Allbirds AI. And I think the share price absolutely rocketed, and now it's starting to crater again, because everyone's like, what do you actually do? How does that even figure? I mean, how do you deal with, and I guess, maybe that's part of, I know, Tom, you want to talk about sort of the geopolitical side of AI as well. Like, how do you think that this sort of maybe works into it? Because that's obviously the US sort of system over there, but how do you think that tends to affect things, whether it's US based, European based?
Well, first of all, obviously AI has already become a huge geopolitical topic. We've seen that over the last couple of years, with US companies investing more and more money, and US government making AI a strategic topic, a strategic issue. And you can obviously see that across the whole value chain, going down to chip manufacturers, NVIDIA chips, right? Like, I mean, everyone knows that conversation. So there is two completely opposite forces going on. on the one hand side, we've seen kind of artificial intelligence as a technological topic being pushed with higher and more, being like more money, higher rate of compute, and obviously more amount of data. And to that end, I only want to say 2028. 2028 is the predicted end of scaling with more data, because we will effectively run out of data. So there is a timeline on that one. On the other big kind of opposing force, which is 90-degree completely vertical to that force, is the way that our intelligence works, our human intelligence, because we are social animals. Hence, our intelligence has been created through collaboration. So through social interaction, our brains are social organs. And so we have basically these two opposing things. On the one hand side, we have the idea that we just throw more money and more compute and more data on the topic, and we will probably going to see increase in, you know, performance until a certain point, until we get to a limit, and my assumption is it will be around 2028. And then on the other hand, we will see a difference between what the sheer kind of like artificial intelligence performance can do and what we can do with artificial intelligence, because after artificial intelligence will become the tool that will absolutely normalize, right? When everyone has access to it, and that's going to happen with open source, with China pushing into that direction, we will see a big normalization that will lift up to a medium level of performance, that everyone can do almost the same thing with AI. But then the question is like, who can do something different with it? And at that point, you know, the people will stand out that have the level of creativity, which is again a social construct, which is something that requires certain specific ways of creatively working together. So long story short, I think geopolitically speaking, ultimately those countries and those organizations will thrive with AI that will cultivate that creative spirit and that creative connection to work with that technology. And that's why I think, yes, we need to keep our level of independence from being locked in from a vendor point of view. We shouldn't kind of like consider it as a US technology only, or a Chinese technology. Not at all. It should be, we should be able to do more or less the same with whatever AI model we choose to work with. The key thing is what we're going to do with it, like how we're going to work with it. And I think that discussion is still not happening sufficiently.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not only that it's not been taking place, it's also the attitude for this discussion is not clear. And what do I mean by attitude? On the one hand side, Europe is shouting at themselves and complaining about themselves in terms of not being one of the major players. But on the other hand, and just hopping into a special field of now that everybody's looking for physical AI, Europe has the knowledge and has the access to what physical AI could be worth and what would be built on. But still, if we have this attitude and we know that this is worth something, then we should also talk to those vendors in a different way, and not only in the way of procurement and saying what do we have to pay for license modeling, but I would also ask them onto a table and invite them and say, okay, I have something, what do you give me instead of what I am willing to pay? So that's why I think it's very contradictional. And first of all, we need kind of a attitude alignment somehow then to force this discussion, and not only be sad if nobody is willing to invite us to the table, right?
I think that's such an interesting point, Nicolas, that you say there about the kind of like, well, what are you going to do for me rather than what am I paying for? And I'm just thinking about this on a consumer level here, because I've often found this the sort of rampant irony, really, in the fact that I've just upgraded to a Claude Max subscription because I'm just addicted to it, clearly. And I just sit there thinking to myself, I'd previously signed up, thanks for that, Tom. I previously signed up for user research, for example, before. So, you know, I'd get paid an X amount of money to go and help a company develop a game or a product or this, that, and the other. And here I am forking out a ludicrous amount of money every single month to train something that is effectively then going to be training me. And I just sit there thinking, this is, I mean, I can see how bonkers this all is, and yet I just can't stop myself from wanting to use it. So, I mean, Nicolas, I guess one of the questions I have for you is, you mentioned physical AI. I was wondering, and then Tom, exactly the same to you, if okay, is are there any particular sort of aspects or versions of physical AI that you've heard about or that you can think of that are most sort of exciting to you?
Well, not in terms of excitement, perhaps, but in terms of what is obvious for mainland Europe, of course, is they have a strong industry. So when it comes to physical AI, I would rather start with what is more or less already there, which we call machine learning, which is not even generative AI, but at least have amount of okay qualified data to get into this next space and train with this. And then it could be more exciting, of course, to find or to add additional fields. But I think why we also have to speed up on this, because when we see what happens in China nowadays, and I mean, of course, we could say that we are somehow kind of spoiled or not very happy that China has this industry because they have adopted everything from us. But well, of course, it has happened. So it's not that they are adopting, but they have like a knowledge already for the area of physical space. And investing into this area like billions of dollars, trying to grow with it. So we definitely should move on this as well, to use the advantage that we still have. Because getting back to 2028, I think by 2028, the advantage that we now have is gone in 2028.
Interesting.
Here's a radical idea, which actually has been originally formulated by Microsoft's founder, and what he said is basically the idea of an algorithmic tax, to say like, okay, we're already moving away from people being able to earn money by simply working with their hands. Obviously, there's still people working with their hands, but less and less so, because we have machines, and now we have machines for the brain. So Bill Gates came up with this idea of saying like, we need to change our tax system to account for that increasingly algorithmic value generation. Right, we see this happening right now, that AI is augmenting or automating away more and more tasks in our classic value chain. Now, I think our European attitude towards equality is actually good, and it's as a differentiator to the US. So what we could do is we could introduce an algorithmic tax that would have to be paid by all the big tech providers, including obviously the Microsoft OpenAI, the Anthropic Claudes of this world. And that tax could fund a basic income for everyone across the European continent, and create the opportunity for people to come up with new creative ways to create value, right?
I wonder what Willie there would have a chance to gain in all of this, though, because he doesn't tend to do something for nothing. So I wonder if there would be a secret copyright law written somewhere saying any money that is basically taken from tax from us in this algorithmic tax, gives us the property of your creations as our little open claw minions.
Well, Bill Gates is very well known for being very generous. So I think he made enough money in his life. He's not after more money, and he clearly sees the need for adaptation to that technological shift that's happening. So the only problem that we have is, from a political point of view, no one's following through. No one has the foresight from governments and from politicians to see that this change requires societal shifts. And even changes from an educational point of view as well, right? We can't educate people anymore in the same way that we used to do it. But that's, something that we have seen with the internet 20 years ago, and we will see with AI again, that societies adapt very slowly, and maybe that requires us to do the adaptation. We're going to be the trailblazers to do the adaptation for others, for other organizations, for governments, for everyone.
When it comes to adaptation, by the way, I just did an analysis on how many patents Europe came up with, especially in the area of digitalisation and AI. And 2025 was a record for 200,000 new ideas, which then merged into patents. But now the thing is that, of course, the patent is not worth anything from the very beginning, because it has to be a product has to be created, or a business plan, and then later on a business, of course. And now what the connection could be between those 200 patents, whether to the text or as well to the idea and the area of physical AI. So somewhere in between there must be the golden nugget, the new one, or perhaps a few golden nuggets.
I think that's a great point, Nicolas, and it makes me think, and perhaps this is something we should pick up on next time. But I heard something, I think, about AI generating its own technological innovations that it's then being going to send to get patented, and how there was some big sort of furore and a lot of debate as to whether or not that's something that should be allowed or not. So I think building on that point would be great to chat about this next time. And so I guess that's probably all we've got time for today. So, all right, for everyone, it's a goodbye from me.
And from me, thank you very much.